I'm Susanna Rosenstock, the
Director of Art Toronto, and I'm pleased to introduce you to our Focus Latin America Artist Talk for 2016. Isabella Villanueva is this year's curator of our Focus Latin America section that features 6 artist projects and 16 galleries. I hope you've all had a chance to see the projects and will take some time after this talk to return there. Isabella is an independent curator and cultural producer from Venezuela, now based in New York City. She holds a master's degree in history of art and connoisseurship from the University of Glasgow, Scotland, and a master's degree in modern and contemporary art from the University of Cambridge. She recently curated the exhibition Basta at the Shiva Gallery at John Jay College in New York City and the Pioneers section for Art Lima 2016. She was part of the curatorial team of the 30th Sao Paulo Biennial in 2012. From 2006 to 2011, she served as assistant curator for the Americas Society Art Gallery in New York, and her experience and accomplishments go on and on from there. Isabella will be speaking with 3 of the artists who are joining us from Latin America, who have all created site-specific work for Art Toronto. We have Christian Ochaita from Guatamala, who works with a partner under the name the Buró of Public Interventions and is responsible for the hammock jungle in the center of the fair that hopefully you've seen, and if not, please go take a rest in one of the hammocks after the talk. Also joining us is Federico Ovalles-Ar from Venezuela, who created the mixed media installation made from materials found at construction sites that you can see close to the entrance of the fair. And finally, we have Luciana Lamothe from Argentina, whose site-specific sculpture made of wood, iron piping, and clamps can also be seen near the entrance to the fair. Please join me in welcoming them.
Thank you for coming. I'm going to introduce very briefly the artists, and then we're going to be showing some of their works, some of their previous works, so they can basically give you a proper idea of what they've done before and what they did here. So we're going to start with Christian Ochaita from the Buró de Intervenciones Públicas in Guatemala. This is a project that he and his partner Stefan Benchoam started 8 years ago in Guatemala in response to the lack of public spaces and infrastructure for recreation and socialization in Guatemala City. And basically what they do now, what they've been doing for the last couple of years, is creating interventions that encourage use of public space through playful elements. They actually did that beautiful hammock that it was called. I read an article today that it was called in one of the, I think the CBC, an article, they called it a veritable nap palace. So, so we're gonna have Christian sort of like mention some of his works. This is a project that you guys did in San Antonio, right?
Yeah, correct. Is this on? Yeah, there you go. I couldn't hear myself. So, yeah, gracias, Isabella. I wanted to start with this because I don't know if all of you had seen it, but yeah, this is a project we did last year in a similar type of show. It's Luminaria in San Antonio. It's more of a biennale than gallery situation. It was outside, and we took, they had us doing the same type of urban intervention, so there was a scaffolding and we installed hammocks to be used. I guess the whole reasoning behind our works, as Isabella was saying, it's a response to the lack of parks and infrastructure that exists in Guatemala City. And so the idea being that with the least amount of energy and effort, you can create something that can be usable, fun, without too much work, too much investment, too much effort in general. And so this was something we showed there, and I guess I'll backtrack to this whole hammock installation. Let me see. And then this. Excuse me, is it just the green button we press to go forward? Oh, there we go, thank you. And then this is kind of how it was used at night, right? So it's something very simple. It was just hanging hammocks in a already existing scaffolding installation. There's definitely, there's things that you can and can't do, and it's obviously a semi-precarious situation, but that's kind of what we were talking about always. It got packed, obviously, with something in the streets, something that people can use, and something that costs, less than $500, $200. It's not a big investment. So that's kind of what we've been talking about. This came through something we'd been kind of working on earlier. This was something we did in a car park in Guatemala City. It was, an abandoned lot with a car park. And then just something you can do, something that makes it fun and interesting and exciting. This is in the car park in an abandoned factory in the city. And so similar stuff like this was something we did in Panama. Again, it was just a scaffolding structure in a building that's being held up that's it's kind of falling down, so they have the scaffolding holding up the building. It's a very common sight to see in Latin America. And it's something to take advantage, we have these type of sites. Let's see how we can take advantage, as easily and as fun as possible. Proper image from the top. And then this was a bigger project. I sadly don't have better pictures of this. This is an area in Guatemala City. It's one of the main streets that runs down the corridor of the city. This was the first time we actually hung hammocks. And so, obviously, if there's a lack of public space, we also have a lack of public space infrastructure, I guess. So seating, everything that comes with quality of life related to public space. And so we bought about 100, a little bit less or a little bit more than 100 hammocks, and we just went on hanging them and hanging them and hanging them. They obviously lasted about 2 or 3 days because, somebody's going to take them, but it's not that. It's the idea of being able to use these spaces relatively easily, and that somebody's going to enjoy them for a certain amount of time. And it's just another vision of, what you can do without doing too much and the benefit of that. And it was basically signage and hammocks, right? Nothing that really takes that much effort. It's just a little thought into it. And so these are a few pictures of the project. Another project we've been working on, this is probably one of the projects we've been working on the longest time, for about 8 years. So we didn't know, but there is obviously a lot of people use the streets to play, neighborhoods. There's nothing new about that. In Guatemala City, there's a bunch of like street leagues. It's actually run by the city, but they have obviously a lack of infrastructure. So what they do basically is they close off the city streets. Something similar to what happens, in first world countries now. You want to close those streets, you want to make them more pedestrian, you want to liven up the city streets, right? And so this already happens, but it's just a matter of them not having the amount of money or to invest in proper quality. So, we proposed an idea of, just painting the soccer fields on the streets. Really simple. This is us painting it. One morning it took us, about 6 hours per pitch, with proper quality paint. So they've lasted, they last 5 or 6 years. A little bit of signage, so to give them a little bit of recognition. Nothing, nothing huge. All right. This is just 2 streets in a location where they had actually 2 leagues, a women and a men's league. So you'll see pictures now, but nothing really that difficult, and something that we could do in an afternoon with the proper paint and the proper materials. And this is kind of what goes on. This is a weekend that they had the league, but they actually use it in the weeknights. So they'll close off the street. We actually installed 2 spotlights. They already did it. They already played there at night because they're street lights. So we just made it a little bit easier for them. And this is pictures of one of the weekends. They got their proper referee. You've got your goals. You've got the whole community backing of what needs to be there. It's just a matter of making it easier. And this is another project we did. This is early on. I think this might be about 6 or 7 years ago. This is a typical highway, typical highway in a Latin American country. Just, something that happens. Typical infrastructure investment that we have. But this is the type of things we'd like to do. You have this space. See how you can take advantage of. So we hung up. Was it tires? Yeah.
Like big truck tires.
Yeah, just big truck tires. Something that you've seen hundreds of times. It's nothing that new. It's nothing, incredibly different, but yet it just makes it a little bit more accessible for people to use these kind of semi-precarious locations. And other shots of places we've done it. And then this was something we did maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So there's some of the investment that does happen in Guatemala City tends to be public-private at the moment. So, development comes along. We don't have, I would say, a lot of social development yet, but we do have a lot of development. So developers take over some of the public space. This was a public street that was bought up by a private company, and they kind of redeveloped the whole, the streets and the whole driving situation around, and they left a few fountains there. And so we said, well, it used to be public, so let's see if we can keep it public. and see if we could, have fun with that idea. And we've done, I guess, a few locations where we've done this type of work, where it's just a matter of bringing into the conscious of people in Guatemala the idea that public space matters, right? You want to have the better, that's what you remember when you travel. You remember the public space of cities. So it's not a big investment, it's not a huge, I would say, an image thing or something really contemporary. It's just something simple that you can do.
I wanted to ask specifically for this sort of projects, do you have to invite the public to come and sort of like hang out and chill, or?
I think the invitation is once we do it, people, some of them, obviously this is something that I don't think a lot of people are walking down with a swimsuit in Guatemala City and just put it on and, go in. But yeah, the hammocks, it's a lot more accessible. You hang a few hammocks up. And it's kind of like what happens here in a gallery space. You hang a few hammocks up. People have been walking around for 2 hours. You want to take a rest. It's not a specifically hammock type of location, a gallery space, but, you want to just sit down, have some fun, chat. So.
Usually in art fairs, you don't get many spaces to sort of like decompress or like gather out everything that you've seen. So we were interested in sort of like providing that space, and that's why they chose, and they were very adamant on having, plants and pineapples, and, it'd be very colorful. So you're sort of like isolated and you feel like you're somewhere else, right?
Yeah, it's a little like streetscape inside, the big art fair. Yeah. I think that's about it. I think that's what I had. But yeah, I just wanted to talk over that. It's a project we've been doing with a friend for a while. He has an artist background and I'm an architect, and so we became interested in this idea of taking back would be maybe would be a word, or taking over public space, making it accessible, making it fun, taking advantage. So thank you, and I guess we'll change it over to Lucy.
Give us 1 minute. ¿Quieres ir de segunda o tercera? Okay, so we're going to continue. Sorry. We're going to continue with Luciana. Luciana is a great artist from Argentina. She's a professor in fine arts specialized in sculpture. She actually did the very prestigious Cuitca Scholarship, which is Guillermo Cuitca is one of the most well-known Argentinian painters, and he's been doing basically a mentorship or scholarship for years, and she was one of those artists who was privileged enough to work with him. She also did a residency in Skowhegan, Maine. Her work extends into sculpture, assemblage, and installation, and we were fortunate enough to be able to have Luciana come here, and she created that beautiful piece in 3 days, which was very unusual because she usually takes a lot longer to create her pieces, which usually interrogate notions of construction and deconstruction, and it's also basically a reflection on the whole culture of consumerism and materialization that, basically she encounters in Argentina, but I think all of us around in Canada, the United States, or everywhere else are faced with. I'm going to be translating for Luciana, or you want to try to speak in English, or you want me to translate? No, I prefer English. Okay, so I'll be the translator, so bear with me if I make any mistakes. So she's going to tell us about this piece, right?
Bueno, sí. Esta pieza la hice en el Centro Cultural Haroldo Conti en Buenos Aires. Es un espacio muy grande, de unos 50 metros de largo por 14 de ancho. Y bueno, cuando me invitaron a mostrar acá fue un gran desafío cómo intervenir en el espacio por las dimensiones.
Okay, sorry. So this is an installation that she created for a cultural center in Buenos Aires called Arnaldo Conti. And it was a challenge since it was, a very large space, 50 meters long and 14 wide.
Yes.
Okay.
14.
Okay.
Bueno, digamos, el espacio era muy grande y el presupuesto no tan grande, entonces, digamos, tenía como que encontrar la manera de resolverlo, y lo que pensé fue en generar una gran pared que divida el espacio en dos.
Sorry. So she basically, they didn't have a very large budget for her to produce a work.
¿Sí?
So she decided to use sort of like cheap construction materials, and she basically created a door that would divide the space in two.
Bueno, y la construcción es básicamente, está hecha más o menos de la forma en la que yo trabajo los materiales. Estos son materiales de andamios, son caños y planks, maderas, placas de madera. Entonces la idea fue generar un andamio, pero no desde el piso, sino colgado desde una de las columnas del espacio.
Okay. So she decided to use the materials that she's been working with for several years, and they're basically the same materials that you use for scaffolding. So you have the wood planks and the tubular nudes, I think. How do you call them? Christian, los caños de. Oh, the pipes. Sorry, pipes. So basically, she decided to build the scaffold, but in this case, not being supported from the floor, but basically she created the scaffold basically suspended or hung from one of the existing columns of the building.
Claro, de alguna manera lo que hice fue trabajar con elementos de la arquitectura dentro de este trabajo, pero de alguna manera forzándolos o invirtiéndolos, ¿no? Entonces el andamio está suspendido en vez de estar apoyado en el piso. Lo que hice fue, con esta seguidilla de maderas, generar una especie de gran viga de 14 metros de largo, pero esta viga está tomada desde un solo punto, desde un solo extremo, que es el extremo donde está el andamio. El otro extremo está suspendido, todo está suspendido, digamos.
Okay, so basically one of the things that she's very interested in doing in her work is basically creating tension and sort of like forcing the materials to their limit, I would say. So in this case, I sort of forgot half the things she said. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so she was speaking that she likes to kind of invert the logic of what you would typically see with these type of materials. So scaffolding, usually, this comes from the floor and it holds stuff up. And she was inverting that logic to stretch the material's logic or capacity as much as possible. And then with the wood, it was similar like that. It's a 14 meters, so I don't know what it translates to feet, but kind of a big beam that she's suspending. So it's that logic of taking the materials to their opposite or logical sense, I would say.
He's a better translator than I am, so yes, we're going to be using him. So.
Entonces, ¿se apagó? No. Bueno, esta gran viga que generé, que está hecha de tablas de madera, digamos, funciona de viga porque las tablas de madera están en sentido vertical. Pero al mismo tiempo, en la siguiente imagen...
So it works as a beam, or it could function as a beam because of the wooden planks that she basically placed vertically. But at the same time...
digamos que esta pared que también funcionaba de puerta, uno podía activarla, podía pasar de un lado al otro. Digamos, ese era el único lugar por el que el espectador podía transitar por ese lugar, abriendo esa puerta.
So it actually was a door that the public had to sort of like push in order to like go from one end of the space to the other. So it was a functional door as well. It wasn't just sort of like that installation.
Digamos, entonces la madera en ese sentido trabajaba en dos sentidos, ¿no? Uno siendo viga en vertical y otro en horizontal, que lo que pasa es lo contrario, digamos, la madera cede y flexiona, y de esa manera es como puede generar el espacio para que alguien pueda pasar.
So she was saying how, again, the wood is working in two ways, right? It's working as a beam, but also as a door. And using the flexibility of the wood to give that, I guess, aperture, I guess that sense of crossing to the other side, using the tension of the wood.
Yeah, he's better with the technical terms than I am, being an architect, so yeah.
En ese sentido es que me interesa la relación con el espectador, siempre la obra y el espectador como que generan...
So she's very interested in basically the relationship with the viewer, with the public, and having them sort of like activate the work or like perceiving and like activating around the work.
Me interesa cuando se genera esa comunión entre el trabajo, lo que hace el trabajo y el espectador, que también está trabajando en ese momento, ¿no? Está empujando, está generando una fuerza y está recibiendo como esa fuerza que de alguna manera casi se le viene encima de toda la estructura que está colgando. Digamos, lo que percibe el espectador es eso, ¿no? Una estructura muy pesada colgando, que al mismo tiempo se mueve, ¿no? Bueno, esa relación casi empática entre el trabajo y el espectador es, digamos, lo que me interesa cuando incluyo al espectador en la obra, ¿no?
No, no.
We
No,
can do
but
this one
basically, no,
together.
but basically what she's saying is that she's very interested and she basically wants that sort of like active participation of the viewer and have them sort of like activate, and in this case sort of like tense and feel like the weight and like the tension of the materials that they have to sort of like push. Or like in the piece that we have here, basically you can sense when you walk around it, you can sense the materials are sort of like at their extreme. You know, you're almost sort of like, when we were installing it, we had like the art handler, he was actually a quite funny, very nice guy. But when we were sort of like pushing the wood planks up and forcing the material to its limits, he was sort of like a little bit scared because he was worried that it was going to sort of like break off and he could lose a finger or something. And that's one of the things that, so she's actually very interested in that sort of like notion and people sort of like perceiving their sort of like bodily and like in the case of their materials, like have them pushed to their limit. And so that's why her piece is sort of like demand an active public, having them sort of like walk around or like activate the works per se.
I guess to continue that thought, and she was finishing up, she really likes the idea of the relationship with the person to the material. So that sense of, yes, the person pushing, but also the material pushing back, right? So that kind of interaction with the material, that's very important to her.
Bueno, no, este es otro trabajo. Esto es en el Museo Mar de Mar del Plata, en Argentina.
So this is in a museum in Mar del Plata in Argentina. So people actually were meant, it was basically a corridor that people were meant to walk over and sort of like activate, and clearly it's very sort of like unstable.
Claro, digamos, el sistema constructivo es el mismo y lo que pasa con los materiales es lo mismo, digamos, ¿no? La madera cede, flexiona y lo que se genera es una inestabilidad al caminar.
So yeah, she's basically using the same materials and flexing them, and what it creates is like a very unstable, like hallway for people to walk in.
Yeah, like a very precarious.
Very precarious. Thank you.
Yeah. Bueno, en este caso también una de las cosas que me interesaba era como generar un paralelo entre el hecho de caminar, que es una puesta en movimiento del cuerpo permanente, y es una especie de caída permanente del cuerpo. Cuando estás dando un paso te estás cayendo, cuando das otro paso te estás cayendo. Y eso me gustaba enfatizarlo también con la inestabilidad que genera el movimiento.
So in this case, she was very interested in, you know, she sees the whole process of walking as like the body sort of like falling continually, like every step you take. So this was taken, of course, you know, in this corridor where like every step you take, you know, we were doing it in like a very unstable, so it became sort of like an acrobatic sort of like exercise, but yeah.
Estos trabajos son un poco similares a lo que estoy mostrando acá, casi son como el inicio del trabajo que estoy mostrando acá.
So these are very similar to the work that we're presenting here. She basically said that this is sort of like the beginning of this sort of like investigation or these works, and which, you know, we can see one of them here that she created.
Digamos que acá ya empiezo a jugar un poco más con la forma dentro del plano, digamos. Lo que me interesa siempre es preservar el plano de la madera, ¿no? Es, de alguna manera se ve el origen.
¿Plano? ¿Cómo se dice? So she's basically starting to sort of like activate or play on the plane of the wood or of the plank. So, it goes inwards, it goes, the structure and the surface, and the material is the one getting sort of like the tension or the cutting.
Ya. O sea, lo que me interesa es que los materiales y la estructura siga siendo andamio, digamos, ¿no?
So she's interested in, it's still a scaffold. So she's interested in maintaining it as a scaffold, but, she's intervening it or pushing it to the limits and creating a new tension in it.
Sí, es una mezcla entre la forma y el andamio de alguna manera. O sea,
una mezcla entre la forma
y el andamio, digamos, como-
So it's a mixture of the form and the scaffold in the end. So this is something that you did at La Maison Rouge in Paris, right?
En París.
So era como un balcón, ¿no?
Sí, es una especie de balcón que daba a un entrepiso en el espacio.
So it was sort of like a balcony that faced sort of like a lower floor in the space.
Y digamos que tenía cierta altura y eso generaba como mucho vértigo llegar hasta el ¿cómo se dice? Hasta el tope.
So because of the height, it generated a lot of, I guess, vertigo or like fear amongst people who, ventured to go out to the end, because you could sort of like feel, or as you can see in the image, like the plank is almost like flexing and going downward. So there's, a real concern, I guess, in the spectator of them, I don't know, thinking that they could fall.
Sí, digamos que también me interesa que dentro de esa relación que se genera entre el espectador y la obra, me interesa el acto de fe que hay que tener, digamos, en los materiales para poder acceder a la obra, digamos. Es una especie de pacto, ¿no? Para mí. La estructura te garantiza de que no se va a romper y el espectador tiene que creer en la palabra, digamos, entre comillas, de la obra, del estructura.
So she's saying that she sees it almost as an act of faith between the viewer or the spectator and the materials, because the spectator has to trust that they're not going to break, even though they're being sort of like tensed and pushed to their limit. But she's very interested in having that sort of like connection between, it's an act of faith, as she's saying, because like, if you venture out to sort of like activating and walking down that balcony, you have to trust that the materials are going to support you and not break, and you're not going to fall down.
Same work, same
These are
system.
actually, estos son bancos, no? So these are actually benches, right? Where people you can actually sit on them. So yeah, as you can see there.
Lo mismo, cuando te sentás, la madera cede mucho y la sensación es que se va a romper, se va a quebrar, pero resiste.
So again, you have that same act of faith, of trust. When you sit on them, you can feel sort of like the wood planks are like flexing, or you might believe that it's going to break, but it doesn't. So it's again an act of, trust and faith between, the viewer and the material. I love that piece. Yeah, this is a piece that actually.
Bueno, en este trabajo poco siempre lo mismo, solo caños, sistema de andamios, construcción, pero lo que hago en este caso es cortar los caños en las puntas, generando esta especie de filo, de punta, y lo mismo, trato de generar esa idea de agresividad del material, de violentarlo al mismo tiempo y de mostrar su fragilidad, porque esas puntas están sostenidas por 2 centímetros de superficie de caño que queda al final de la punta, ¿no? Entonces es esa ambigüedad entre el material, la fortaleza del material, la dureza del material y la fragilidad, ¿no? Y digamos que deviene en un material blando y frágil.
So this is a piece. Actually, I saw I saw a similar piece that she presented in Art Basel Miami last year. Again, she's working with the same materials for scaffold. In this case, she's very interested in sort of like the aggressive sort of like and so she's again working with these tubes, but she's cutting them and so she's like folding them and so she's interesting of giving sort of like a violent sort of like aspect to this, you know, because they're open and they're breaking and so.
One of the things she was saying is that it's the least amount of surface needed to support these cuts. So that's what was one of the things.
Yeah, one of the things, again, a constant in her work is, I think she's very interested in suspending things, and you can see it in the piece here. It's like folding, but it's sort of like floating or suspend. And the same with the balcony piece installation that we saw before that she created in Paris. And this sculpture here as well, I don't know if you saw sort of like the base, where you had like the tubes, but they were sort of like on their tips. So she's very interested in the whole sort of like idea of gravity and suspension, and that's sort of like a constant in her work as well.
Esta es una obra parecida a la que mostré en el Museo de Mar del Plata, el mismo.
So this is a similar installation of very similar to the one she showed us before that she created for the museum in Argentina, but that was done in a gallery, I think, in Buenos Aires. Yeah, in Ruth Ben-Zakar. So, you know, they're sort of like similar works done on platform, with scaffolding as well.
Bueno, este es un trabajo anterior.
This is an earlier work.
Llené la galería de polvo de cemento. ¿Estamos excedidos?
Sí. I think we're going to let... I think it's interesting for you guys to be able to talk to them and sort of like make questions. So because of the lack of time, we're going to continue with Federico, and then if you have more questions for Cristian, Luciana, we can do it at the end after Federico has spoken. But yeah, these are basically images of earlier works that she did, but unfortunately, I don't think we have the time now. So we're going to go with Federico. Federico Ovalles-Ar is originally from Venezuela, but he's now based and lives in Bogotá, Colombia. He's very interested in pondering about the failures of the whole process of modernity in Latin America, specifically in Venezuela, but also in other South American countries. His work evaluates the evolution of the informal architecture and constructivism and geometric abstraction, which is very, you can see it. I'm also from Venezuela, and that's something that you grow up with, and you know, after the Second World War, you know, Venezuela being an oil-rich country, we had sort of like a boom of modernity, and so we see it in the way that our cities were designed. So he's very interested of like examining that process. His work is also questioning the fragility of our architecture, and he likes to work with ruined materials, and that's what he did at the entrance, that beautiful, sort of like it goes up almost to the ceiling with that beautiful work that he did here. Federico, ¿quieres hablar?
Okay, hello. First, I'm very sorry. I will show the works from my blogspot because I couldn't download the images. Well, as Isabella say, I like to work with poor materials first, and sometimes founded materials from the street. When I start to work with these pieces, I start to work it actually in the street. I take them from the street, and then I reuse it or recomponer.
Yeah, so basically he's very interested in, and that's one of the things that he did here, and he mostly done with all his works, is he likes to like walk around the city and take sort of like materials that have been thrown away or have been, and that's basically that's what he did with the materials that he used here for that installation.
Okay, this is a piece I did in Venezuela in a place called Maracaibo, in the second big city of Venezuela. This was a project to be made in the streets. I mean, all pieces around a neighbor. I went there. I mostly what I need or what I want when going to do some work is like going to the place first, see the place, see around the place, and then make the work. Think about the work. It's what mostly I prefer to do before to sing in the work. And then here I went there to Maracaibo and then went to the big market around and found all these pieces like plastic pipes from fabric or something, and I did this kind of installation with cardboard. Found these pipes and tried to hold or to extend la acera,
La acera.
acera, sí,
The
el andén,
sidewalk.
the sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
Like to extend the sidewalk. I mean, after I extend the sidewalk with the cardboards, in the top I put some cement and try to. If you look, I don't have another photograph of this here, but if you see from the other side, you will see like the sidewalk continues to another part, but it's just very fragile. I mean, it's not real.
I have a question for you. So, were people actually afraid of walking through that, or they?
No. They can't.
Maracaibo is like a very warm city, perhaps like one of the warmest cities in Venezuela. So there's an issue as well with the heat and like the sun. So I don't know. I'm guessing people would have been happy and welcome to that sort of like.
No, it was obviously you couldn't walk through, but it's like probably like it's in between when you see a construction in the street, like a building or like a sidewalk or like a street, you see like there are many things like yellow lines to not to go in. I like this process in between the construction or to taken down. I mean, when the building is gonna be taken down, you don't know if they're gonna build it, they're gonna take it down, or they're gonna do something new. I like in all this process you see in the city that you really don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to be finished. But in my country, it's always happened that nothing is going to be finished. I mean, many things just step there in the middle, in between something, but you don't know if it's gonna be finished in 1 month or in 10 years or never, because still there are many buildings, many architecture things you see, but they never have done. I mean, like finish. I like that process. I like that way of you don't know really if it's gonna be a strong construction or it's gonna be just something abandoned there in the street. Okay, let's gonna see another pictures. Okay, the second one, yeah, that one. This also I made it in this festival another year in Maracaibo. I'm showing this because these are like the beginning of this process more or less, and these are founded cardboard as well. And I made this something like volumetric. This is right, volumetric thing, but it's completely empty inside. I mean, if you see, probably could be something, looks like something heavy, but it's not heavy. It still is fragile. I mean, it's nothing. If you do it and you do it with the hand, probably everything could be coming down. And let's go another.
Can we? Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that one. Okay, sorry, it's a very small photo, but this is a columna.
A column.
A column in a museum. It's made as well on cardboard, and they are just open and put it one over another until the ceiling. And it could be as it's strong, but it's not doing nothing. I mean, it's just standing there. If you do it, as I said before, if you do it with the hand, probably everything is gonna be down. But it stay there for 3 months, and nobody touch it and keep there.
You're very interested in sort of like using very fragile materials, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like how they look like. I mean, cardboard is a very strong material, but not that strong. Sometimes people do live in cardboards, inside the cardboard, because it protects from the cold, from the rain, but probably not for a year in one cardboard. I mean, for 1 month, 3 months, they look for another cardboard. I like that idea. I like the idea that some materials could be strong, but not strong enough, but you can use it. I mean, in Venezuela, everyone's just in the street, trying to do things and put together some materials that you never could think it's possible to happen. Like, I don't know, like maybe steel and cardboard, or steel icopor, anime. How's the material called?
Anime.
Okay, there is a white material they put inside
Foam? No.
Foam, like
styrofoam.
Styrofoam. Yeah,
Really
like many people use this material, and they stick it to steel, to wood, to cardboard. I mean, there are materials that normally no one think that could be together. But you see amazing things with all these different materials. Like people who sell in the street, they make these artifacts to sell, to show, to display. And they are made from whatever. Because every day they have to put it away. They have to take it down. And the next day they have to put again, and every day is a different thing. They have to cut, they have to put it completely down, and they stay like from 6 in the morning to 10 in the night or 7 in the night with these artifacts, and they worked for that moment. They worked, and there is where my thinking about materials going through. Let's see another photo. Okay, this is actually an installation I did I went to the streets, I went to look for some materials that these people from the markets do to make their display. And then you can see there is fabric, there is this plastic scene, there is metal, there is cuerdas, cords. All kind of materials to make them together in a way for a. I mean, it's still as well. They stay there for 3 months, and then they stay permanent. But sometimes they just fall down. Or let's see another photo, please. Down.
Up.
Okay, here. This one. Okay, there is a piece. This is a piece as well. They invite me to. I rather show in open spaces, but or big places like this. But in this time, they invite me to make a work inside a classical space for art. I mean, to hang things in the wall. They show me the place. I didn't like the place. I didn't want to do something like just hanging. And this is the panel. This is a panel where you hang a picture or sculpture or something. And what I did is try to deconstruct the panel. I mean but I didn't broke the panel. I just put some piece of wood extra and turned it a little bit bent and stayed there. And that was it. That was the piece. But they didn't expect that. They wanted like something, put it there. I mean, a piece from the studio to the gallery. But I just wanted to do something else, like work with the material was there. Okay. Okay. That one was a piece made in Bogota, in the street. It was a festival to make interventions in the street, and just found many materials and make this kind of wall. Not a big wall. It's like I close the pass. After a while, I did this, and after a while, I saw this place already. They have done it like properly. They close it completely and make a old structure, a real structure. For me, it wasn't a structure. In one side was cement, but in the other side, if you see, it's just everything. I mean, like a piece of wood, like a piece of metal, just to hold the cement for a while. Okay, this one. And this as well, they invite me to a place. There is a during the Arbo, the Bogota Art Festival in Bogota. There is another art fair called La Otra. They invite me to this empty big building, abandoned building, and then I did this kind of like if I put the floor up.
Raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, you raised the floor.
Yeah, but I didn't. No, I just put some wood, and then I hold it with these pieces of wood, and then put the cement on it, and at the end it was look like the floor. One of those days, yes, a few guys just walked through, and didn't resist, of course, and it broke. This is the only time it happens. It really happens because they thought there was a floor, but it doesn't matter. Well, I don't know if you wanna do something.
Well, I think, I can talk to them anytime, but I'm guessing you would be more interested in making questions and asking them directly if you have any queries or if you want to talk to them. So, oh, sorry, she has a microphone for you. Just hold it fairly close.
Yes, thank you very much for a wonderful program. Let me ask each one of you, when you started your project, did you start with ink and paper and a drawing, or did you make a hard model to look at, like the pipes, and then the hammocks, and then the street corner? And as you worked on those things, it became to a real project. Did you have any difficulty with the city saying you can't do that here? Hammocks outside, pipes outside, and corners covered up. Answer, please.
Sí, que si construyeron acá unos dibujos preparatorios o si tuvieron algún tipo de dificultad con la ciudad para hacer la pieza que querían hacer. So I think who could start answering that question is Christian, because they...
So in our case, it was more of a dialogue. It was more of a dialogue of what was happening in the city and what what was available, what we could do. Just a discussion of there is no public space, so what we can do. So it wasn't the thing of doing mock-ups or models or drawings or anything like that. At least when we started, the idea of hanging hammocks or using fountains as, I guess, city pools or things like that. When we've done bigger projects, we've collaborated more with social soccer programs in the city, and then there we've obviously had to plan it out, map out 6-7 soccer pitches and kind of do the whole sort of funding process and everything. But when we started, no, it was more of a discussion and just something of how you could implement, like how I was saying earlier, how you could implement something as easily and as efficiently and as fast as possible. A lot of these things, this is probably unregulated. You would not want to have a hammock hanging on a second story of somewhere somebody can fall. But it's just that idea of making it easy, making it fun. But no mock-ups, none of that until we've gotten to more formal things where we've been required, to do it.
But yeah, for example, they were interested in having, as you see, the scaffolds here, it has a second and a third floor. So they were actually interested in having a third, a staircase where people could go up and sort of chill on the hammock upstairs.
Yeah, so-
but because of regulations here, it was extremely difficult, and we couldn't do it in the end.
Yeah, here the logic of the piece here was we were going to go up to the third level and have kind of a viewing platform of the whole fair on the third floor. But apparently we need about 6 months prior planning to go to a second story location. And then additionally to that, I needed some sort of certification for rest and fall, I think is the terminology, to be able to go above 4 feet on a ladder. So, you know, it was just kind of the idea of having people go up there and then you could see the hammocks, but yeah. But the idea was originally to have it. Here I don't have any, I didn't show any pictures, but we did have, like if the knots are done correctly and we do them, you can have, people went up to the third area. I wouldn't recommend it and we would have a waiver for it because, you know, something can happen. But yeah, we had people go up to second and third. So it's that kind of play on, you know, what you can do, what is allowed, and what you can't do.
En mi caso, bueno, sí, vine con eso, como es una pieza autónoma, no interviene el espacio directamente, digamos, sí ocupa un espacio, pero no lo interviene. Y sí, traje planos, maquetas, dibujos, ideas. Y el único problema que tuvimos es de que la pieza tiene las mismas dimensiones que el espacio que yo tenía para montarla. Entonces entra justo. El problema era cómo ubicar esa pieza para que se vea bien, nada más.
So in her case specifically, she did a lot of sketches, preliminary drawings for what she was going to be doing here, but because it wasn't interacting with any place outside, we didn't need any permissions or any permits or anything from the city. The only issue was that it was actually the size of the work, so how to place it so it could be perceived properly, because it requires a lot of space and perspective, so you can walk around and sort of like experiment it properly. So we did sort of like have a difficulty, and we did play around, considering like potential spaces where we could actually have it best shown and where you could have like the more space so you could like walk around it.
Yeah. What I do, I normally have a like a big project. I've been working since 1 year in one project, like making drawings, making ideas, looking at the street, taking photos in the streets, every street. I mean, the street I live in Bogota now. When they invite me, when Isabella invited me to come here, I just adapt the project. Part of the project adapted to this city. Okay, I look the city in the internet. I was thinking about what can I do, what kind of spaces. After they sent me the plan, and I just adapt the idea I'm working to the city. But the project still continues. I don't do it an exactly plan because I want to see by myself the place. When I just arrived, I already made a list with the old materials I will need probably, but I just like to come here and see the place and then make in my mind how it's gonna be. That's more or less how it works.
Yeah, I was very interested in having them actually come here and create that work here. In some cases, perhaps it would have been easier. Or Luciana's piece, it would have been basically really difficult to ship if she had created that then, and we would have needed for like a container. But like I really wanted them to come here and create something here, having been in the city a couple of days and then taking that in and then creating something specifically in situ for our Toronto. So, any other questions?
I'm going to say it both in English and Spanish for Luciana. In English is how much of your process, I know by so much experience that you had, you might by now define a lot of the structure technicalities by yourself, but how much in your process you work with technicians, with engineers, structuralists, ahora dentro de tu proceso, imagino que tienes ya una experiencia enorme en toda la cuestión de equilibrio, tensión, en fin. Pero ¿cuánto dentro de tu proceso de trabajo has trabajado con ingenieros, estructuralistas y técnicos específicos para saber la capacidad que tienen tus estructuras?
Primero que nada hago pruebas en el taller. Yo misma con mis asistentes pruebo los materiales. O sea, digamos que el proceso es pragmático, ¿no?
So basically, she starts in her studio with her assistant. So they start testing the materials there before starting to create the work per se, right?
Luego de eso pido asesoramiento con un arquitecto, que bueno, es siempre un arquitecto con el que trabajo. Él me asesora a nivel estructura y resistencia.
She also works with an architect who advises her on like structure and the resistance of the materials per se. So having an architect sort of like advise her and let her know sort of like the limits or what can be done.
Y en algunos casos he necesitado estructuralistas.
Ingenieros de estructura.
Sí.
And in some cases, she's also worked with engineers sort of like specialized in structures as well. Structural engineers. Yeah, there you go.
Sí, trabajo con ellos.
Yeah. I think this is going to be the last question because we're a little bit out. Yeah, we can continue to talk outside if you're.
Buen día a todos. So I'll ask the question in English and then I'll ask it in Spanish. So I was wondering, because you made a comment, Luciana, before, and I think it applies to all of you, about how the perception of the material that you use is either like the durability and the strength and the trust that people are willing to put in that. Whether that's kind of a comment on your view of how society in general views the structure around them. So if that speaks to how you think your society understands what's available around them. So me preguntaba si esa idea de la fe en la fortaleza o la durabilidad del material que has mencionado es un tipo de comentario sobre la sociedad y nuestra fe en su estructura.
Creo que sí, digamos, es transparente, digamos, la relación. Si bien yo no me refiero directamente sobre eso, pero sí, obviamente dejo que corran esas ideas porque aparecen, son evidentes, digamos.
So yeah, she thinks it's very transparent, and even though it's not specifically what she's referring to, but yeah, yes. I suck as a translator. I apologize. I forget halfway through things of most of the things she said. But yes, you're saying that you're not referring specifically to that issue, but there could be a reading where you can sort of like gather that seeing her work, and she welcomes that. But I think she also wanted, like, besides Luciana, Christian and Federico to answer.
Yes. I would say we don't work with structures and anything like that, but definitely there's a temporal element to the type of urban projects we do. I mean, they're very ephemeral, yeah. So, there's definitely the materials we use, the type of, as we have been kind of using institutional materials that definitely have a longer stay. Essentially, it's a thing that it's more of the idea of what you could do. So there's definitely a time component, I would say, or a temporality component to it.
Yeah. See, well, as you saw, I work with disposable materials. They are there, they are in the streets, they are everywhere. They're using it for many things. Where in these countries, they're using it in one way, and in my countries or in Latin America, they've been using it for some other kind of stuff, for many things, like giving them other kind of lives. I don't know if it has answered your question. I'm a little bit lost, sorry. Yeah, probably yes, but the work is been made not thinking that it will be more accessible. But obviously, my work is accessible because everyone knows the materials, and probably yes.
So I think we're out of time, but I want to thank you all for coming and for bearing with my horrible translation and for, you know, and if you have any more questions, we'd be more than happy to answer anything outside. But thank you, Susana, and everyone from, you know, the amazing team out that were helping us with the presentation. So thank you all, and it's been a pleasure.